The bar was alive with the hum of neon lights and the rattle of cheap laughter, the kind that came not from joy but from the need to drown out silence. Glasses clinked, boots scraped against the sticky wooden floor, and the jukebox in the corner struggled through an old rock song that nobody really listened to. For most of the town, Rusty Jack's Roadhouse was just another stop along the highway, a place to grab a burger, drink away the pain, and avoid the ghosts waiting at home. But for Lily, it was her battlefield. At 25, she'd been working double shifts for months, juggling trays heavier than her tiny frame seemed meant to carry. She wore a tired smile the way some wore armor, bright enough to distract, but cracked at the edges. Her uniform was simple, a faded blue Waitress shirt, patched at the sleeve, and an apron that smelled faintly of grease and coffee. To the drunks, she was just the waitress with the big eyes. To the truckers, she was the girl who always remembered your order. But nobody really knew her. That night, as the clock crawled toward midnight, a group of bikers rumbled in. Their engines shook the thin walls, the way thunder rolls through a storm. 5 of them pushed through the door, all leather, tattoos, and the kind of arrogance that could sour the air. They weren't strangers, bikers stopped often, but this crew was louder, sharper, like they were hunting for trouble. Lily noticed one of them right away. He was bigger than the rest, with a scar running down his cheek like a jagged lightning bolt. His beard was unkempt, his hands rough and restless. He carried himself like a man who had won too many fights and lost too many pieces of himself along the way. The others called him Tank. From the start, Tank's eyes followed Lily everywhere she went. Not in the way most men did, with lazy interest, but with a hunger that made her skin crawl. "Hey, sweetheart," he called when she approached their table, balancing a tray of beers. "How about a smile for us, huh? Or is that extra on the menu?" His friends chuckled. Lily forced a polite grin and set the glasses down carefully. "Here you go. Anything else tonight?" Tank leaned forward, the stale smell of whiskey heavy on his breath. "Yeah. How about you sit down with us? We'll make it worth your while." Lily's smile faltered. "Sorry, can't do that. I've got other tables." She turned to leave, but Tank's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron, squeezing hard enough to make her wince. The bar went quiet in that strange, suspended way, conversations cutting off, the jukebox humming louder in the silence. Everyone saw it, but no one moved. This was the kind of place where people looked the other way. "Come on," Tank growled. "Don't play hard to get." Lily tried to pull free. "Let go." And then, with a sudden, violent motion, Tank yanked her closer. His other hand ripped at her shirt, the fabric tearing down the middle with a sound that cut through the entire bar. Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a glass. But what froze everyone wasn't the violence. It was what they saw beneath. There, across Lily's chest and ribs, were scars, long, faded lines, some thin like threads, others thick and angry like burns. They told a story no words could. A story of pain, of survival. They weren't fresh, but they were undeniable. The bar fell into a stunned silence. Even Tank seemed caught off guard, his hand still clutching the torn fabric, his eyes flicking over the marks. Lily stood frozen, her breath shallow, her body trembling. For years, she had hidden them under layers of clothes and quiet avoidance. And now, here they were, exposed under the harsh neon glow. The first sound came from the corner, a stool scraping. An old man, one of the regulars, stood up. His name was Charlie, a retired mechanic who'd been coming to Rusty Jack's for decades. His hands shook, but his voice was steady when he said, "That's enough." Tank turned, sneering. "Sit down, old man." But Charlie didn't. "You think tearing at her makes you strong? You don't even know what those scars mean. She survived more than you ever could." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Others began to stand, men who'd been silent too long, women who'd swallowed down fear for years. The air shifted, thick with something that felt dangerously close to courage. Tank's face darkened. He pushed Lily back, standing to his full height. "She's just a waitress. Who cares?" But Lily, trembling, finally found her voice. Her eyes, wet with unshed tears, locked onto his. "You don't get to decide what I am," she said softly, but with a steel that surprised even herself. And then she turned to the bar, her co-workers, the regulars, the strangers who now stared at her with something other than pity. "These scars, you want to know what they are? They're from the fire. The one that killed my parents when I was 12. I made it out. Barely. And I've been fighting every day since. So don't you dare look at me like I'm broken. I'm still here. I'm still standing." The silence that followed was heavier than before, but different. It wasn't empty, it was filled with awe. Tank tried to laugh it off, but the sound was hollow. "So what? That's your sob story? Doesn't change anything." But it did. Because suddenly, half a dozen men closed in around Lily. Not to trap her, but to shield her. Charlie. The bartender. Even a trucker who had barely spoken 2 words all night. They stood between her and Tank, their message clear: enough. Tank sneered, but for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. His crew shifted uneasily, their bravado thinning in the face of something they couldn't fight: solidarity. Finally, the bartender spoke. "Get out. All of you. And don't come back." For a moment, Tank looked ready to fight. But the weight of the room pressed against him. He cursed under his breath, shoved past his men, and stormed out. The roar of motorcycles followed soon after, fading into the night. The bar exhaled. Lily stood there, shirt torn, scars bared, heart pounding. And then something she never expected happened: applause. Soft at first, then stronger, until the room echoed with it. Not for what she had endured, but for the courage it took to stand tall in spite of it. Tears spilled freely now, but she didn't hide them. For once, she didn't hide anything. That night changed everything. In the days that followed, people came to the bar not just for beer or burgers, but to see Lily. To thank her. To tell her their own stories, of battles fought in silence, of scars hidden under sleeves and smiles. The bar became more than a pit stop, it became a place where people remembered they weren't alone. And Lily? She finally allowed herself to believe what she had never dared before, that her pain didn't make her weak. It made her strong. Strong enough to face the worst, strong enough to inspire others, strong enough to look a man like Tank in the eye and not flinch. Months later, when someone asked her how she kept going, she smiled, not the forced kind, but a real one, soft and luminous. "Because every scar," she said, "is proof that I lived through something that was meant to destroy me. And if I lived through that, I can live through anything." The bar was never the same again. Neither was Lily. And maybe that was the lesson everyone carried out into the night, that strength isn't the absence of scars. It's wearing them without shame. It's standing tall when the world tries to break you. And it's knowing that sometimes, courage doesn't come from fists or fury, but from a broken girl refusing to bow her head.